Well, hello everybody. How's it going? Chuck Holton here. Good to see you. And thank you for being with us today. On another wonderful live stream here on the Hot Zone. Want to make sure you can all hear me and such. Looks like it. Looks like we're good. Oklahoma, Melbourne, Florida, Baltimore, Maryland, Katy, Texas, Montana, Utah, Phoenix. All right, Ohio. We got people from all over coming in. Presque Isle, Maine. Good to see you again. Good morning. Heine Joe, thank you very much for being here. Anyway, nice to see you all. And I'm appreciative of your support. Thank you very much. So we're going to be talking about the Houthis today. They have been, as usual, making a menace of themselves in the Gulf of Aden and the Red Sea, even as far away as the Mediterranean, believe it or not. They struck a ship, struck an oil tanker the other day. They've been shifting from firing, not just firing drones and missiles. They were firing drones and missiles, ever since October 7th at shipping in those sea lanes and basically making a nuisance of themselves. An expensive nuisance because the United States and Spain and the UK, a bunch of other countries have been sending their ships over there, warships over there, to try to secure those sea lanes. Without much success, I have to say. They have managed to, stop a lot of the drones and missiles from hitting their targets by intercepting them with missiles of our own. But, the Houthis send a $1,000 drone and we take it out with a $50,000 missile. That's not super sustainable, you know what I mean? And so the United States and the UK and this whole coalition have started striking back on the Houthis. We have here video of the U.S. firing missiles from their ships. Now, each one of these missiles is probably more than $1 million. And we're essentially blowing up warehouses and dirt, everything, as I've said many times before, in Yemen is basically a big dirt parking lot. Not much to blow up there. This Houthi problem has actually been going on for a lot longer. They came to power by taking over from the Yemeni government over the course of several very brutal civil wars going all the way back at least 20 years. And they have fought a lot with Saudi Arabia. It's one of the reasons they don't like the United States, because the U.S. gives weapons to Saudi Arabia that Saudi Arabia then uses to meddle with Yemen. Part of the reason that the Houthis took over, they were a tribe up in the northern part of Yemen, but part of the reason they took over Yemen, for the most part, they don't control all of it, but they control a lot of it now. Part of the reason they did that is because Saudi Arabia was actually supporting both sides of the civil war, just trying to get people in Yemen to fight each other so that they wouldn't be fighting against Saudi Arabia. And the Houthis didn't like that, so they went to war with Saudi Arabia. Saudi Arabia then came in and basically started bombing everybody in Yemen. Saudi Arabia is not great on human rights. They are an ally in the region, but they're not, just because they have a ton of money doesn't necessarily mean that they are in any way, let's say, civilized. They're still a lot closer civilizationally to the 7th century savages that are controlling Yemen than they are to the Western world. They don't have any problem bombing fellow Muslims. They don't have any problem bombing and supporting lots of other people. And of course, they are enemies of Iran. And so as the Houthis started fighting against the Saudis, the Iranians sensed a, increase the, how about that? Okay. Kelly Song always complains about my audio. I'm glad you're here, but you're the one who always is the one letting me know that maybe you need better speakers or something. The reason that I keep my audio a little bit low is that when I'm watching the levels here, if I get too excited, I start blowing out the levels and it sounds terrible. And so I'd rather you be able to turn up your volume, but I did have it a little lower than normal today, so I just turned it up. I've got it up more now, so that ought to help. Anyway, when the Houthis started fighting against the Saudis, the Iranians sensed an opportunity there because the Iranians are obviously not friendly with the Saudis. And so, you know, this is a Sunni Shia thing. So the Iranians started supporting the Houthis with missiles and drones and rockets and stuff like that. And when the war started in Gaza back in October of last year, the Houthis, whose national flag is a white background with the words "Death to Israel, Death to America," a curse on the Jews, Islam is the greatest, you know, that kind of thing. I know you're not complaining, Kelly. I'm just giving you a hard time. But you know, that's basically their life motto is we hate everybody except Allah. And you know, if you look at the standard of living in Yemen, it's not real great. I mean, the average Yemeni has 3 to 4 years of education. That's all. The literacy rate is very low, 70-ish%. That's the adult literacy rate. About the only thing that they ever actually read, you know, those who are literate, is the Quran or the Hadith. And so, you know, they're not going to be very intelligent people, but they are going to be very zealous when it comes to radical Islam. And that doesn't make for a good life for anybody. So the infant mortality rate is high. The average life expectancy is like 66 years. It's 13 years lower than the Western world at large. You know, with people that typically have like a 3rd or 4th grade education, they're very easily swayed to violence. And violence is part and parcel of their culture. So, you know, not a great standard of living there. And yet, when you, I mean, I would submit to you that when you center your entire life worldview around who you hate, you're not going to have a very good life. Doesn't matter how much money you have. Doesn't matter how quote unquote civilized you are. It is not civilized to have a worldview that just focuses on who you hate. And that's the worldview that they have in Yemen. Yemen, for its part, the country itself is basically dirt and camels, giant dirt parking lot. There's not much there for us to actually bomb. And you could carpet bomb the country, and you wouldn't really do a whole lot of damage. You wouldn't make it a whole lot worse, is what I'm saying, except that you'd just kill a lot of civilians, and that's what Saudi Arabia was doing. So now we're 9 months into this war, and Yemen has been desperately trying to make itself relevant in the war, to stand up for its compatriots in Gaza by just attacking whatever they can find to attack. Anything that's in the reach of their missiles and rockets, they're gonna attack. And it's a real pain in the backside for the rest of the world, because so much of the world's trade goes through the Suez Canal, and now it's essentially shut down. That's hurting Egypt very badly. It's hurting a lot of the other countries in that whole region very badly. If you pull up a map of, map. If you pull up a map of the area, you could do that in another window if you wanted to. I'm pulling up a map of the region, and you've got the Arabian Peninsula with Yemen at the very bottom of it. Right across from Yemen is Eritrea and Djibouti, and then you have Somalia that's due south just across the Gulf of Aden. Well, now we're getting word that the Yemenis, or the Houthis, are trying to form an alliance with al-Shabab in Somalia. So now we need to go talk about what's going on in Somalia. So if Yemen is a 7th century hellhole, Somalia makes Yemen look like Dubai. The average life expectancy in Somalia is about 9 years lower than Yemen. And yeah, that's funny. B. Bremer, set audio to -6 dB. Check for spikes above. Yeah, thank you. I appreciate that. I know you hear clipping, and that's exactly what I was talking about. My audio is set to -6.8 dB right now. I appreciate your help, but I'm not a moron. I've only been doing this for 20 years, 21 years as of yesterday. But thank you for that. I appreciate the advice. Everybody's always giving me advice on how I ought to do things better. So it will go down to -8. So in Somalia, the average education level is only 2 to 3 years instead of 3 to 4 years. It's manifestly worse in Somalia than it is in Yemen, mostly because they haven't gotten the support from terror countries like Iran around the world. But that may be about to change, and that's a big problem. What they're trying to do, or the intention here, is for Iran to open up another front in the war to further dilute the United States, war-fighting power and the coalition, and to just cost us more money. They're trying to, it's death by 1,000 cuts is what we're talking about here. Now, I want to show you what Somalia looks like. I'll just put some B-roll up here of my last trip to Somalia. It is a failed state. There's no functional, there is an actual government now, but it's not very functional. These guys in the back of the truck with rifles are tribesmen that we hired to protect us. We had to hire 2 separate tribes to protect us from other tribes and from each other. And so everywhere we went around Mogadishu, we had these tribesmen. These are bullet holes in this wall right here in this market. Every place in Somalia is full of bullet holes. This is refugee camps or internally displaced persons camps. This is how many people live. They just live like bugs. There's a lot of damage left over from the Black Hawk Down incident in 1993. This is the international airport in Mogadishu. There are still over 400 U.S. troops at that airport, mostly drone operators and special operations guys. This plane is offloading cot, which I'm going to pause it right there. Let's go back to this plane here. This plane is offloading cot. Cot is a mild narcotic. It's actually grown in Kenya. And every day a plane flies in from Kenya full of cot, and you can see the bales of cot over to the side just off the airstrip. They fly these planes in full of cot, drop them off, and immediately disseminate them out throughout the entire, throughout Mogadishu. Virtually everybody in the entire country is addicted to cot. And cot, it does two things really well. It makes people very angry